Velma, a show where the characters are just as ugly on the outside as they are in the in. A vanity project created by Mindy Kaling, who self-inserted herself into the story as the main character, and turned what was originally a fun mystery of the week type of show into an angry, bitter feminist mess. A vehicle for her and the other writers to project all of their jealousy and self-loathing onto the audience like verbal diarrhea. The mystery solving in this show comes down to either extremely contrived nonsense, like the characters coming up with an assumption based on zero evidence, and that random guess of theirs will somehow lead them to the next clue, or due to supernatural bullshit, evidence will conveniently fall into their lap, and the characters will turn around and point out just how lucky that is. This is what shit writers do when they have written themselves into a corner and don't know how to get out. But the real mystery of the show is how the fuck did Velma get a season 2 since the series is universally despised and no one is watching it. The character designs are hideous to look at, and they've only gotten worse with the introduction of a bunch of new characters who look like members of Antifa. Every character is the exact same from the first season. Velma continues to be a selfish, ugly narcissist that judges everyone by a standard that she herself fails to achieve. Daphne is the boring, retarded love interest that does nothing. Fred is still treated like a fucking child and is constantly humiliated.
Fred, a child, with the mind and body of a younger child.
And Norval continues to be the weak male friend who is so harmless he might as well be a eunuch.
Which is why it's weird how little sexual tension I'm feeling right now.
Huh, yeah, I also feel nothing.
I don't want to waste any more time on this than I have to, so here's the fucking plot. Episode 1 starts in the woods with Velma and Daphne arguing over their relationship status. As last season, Velma got jealous that her simp Norval had a girlfriend and was about to leave her, so in order for Velma to reassert her control over him, she lied and said that she loved him as a form of emotional manipulation.
What a bitch.
Yes, you may have forgotten just how much of a cunt she is. Their argument is interrupted when, in the laziest manner possible, they just stumble across a half-buried body.
Wow, that's really lazy.
The writers can't even be bothered to set up the big mystery of the show in an interesting manner. It's just, oh, there's a dead guy here. So a crime scene is established and a girl called Amber shows up with a mentally ill haircut. She, of course, is non-binary, as everyone incorrectly refers to her as they-them, even though those words are plural, used to describe multiple people.
Why is everyone so fucking stupid?
Her mother, Thorn, was originally an attractive goth girl, but now she has been depicted as a disgusting crackhead with saggy tits that you would find on somebody's grandmother.
The thought of you naked is just gross.
Anyway, Fred, who is now pretending to be a Catholic in order to promote his ghost-busting business, is hired by someone to figure out who the killer is. But Velma, for absolutely no reason, comes to the conclusion that the killer must be Fred's mother, despite the fact that she was impaled by a stalactite last season.
Why?
Not only is she dead, but the murders are completely different, as Fred's mum only targeted attractive girls and removed their brains, but this is the body of a grown man whose cock has been removed, so why does she think it's Fred's mum?
I don't know.
Nothing she does makes any fucking sense, but because the plot needs her to go to Fred's mum's grave, she does, where she's attacked by someone before they run away, leaving behind a pair of shoes. When we reach the last episode, these shoes will be explained, but it's fucking retarded. So for now, Velma uses these shoes to find the next clue. Norval is then seen holding the other shoe because he was also hanging around the cemetery as well, and we fast forward to the next day. It turns out that Norval keeps hallucinating about Fred ever since he killed his mother, and the show just recycles old plot points from the last season, except this time Velma has to be the one to calm Norval down and not the other way around.
Wow, that's really boring.
They then go for a drive where they just so happen to see Fred's van parked outside a funeral home, and since they have nothing else to do, they go inside, where they conveniently discover that the dead person is having a fake funeral held by Daphne's lesbian mothers in order to catch some guy.
How convenient.
Now, Velma begins suspecting that Daphne's mothers are the murderers, but when they turn around and say that they aren't, that's apparently good enough evidence for Velma.
Christ, who wrote this?
Mr. S, a teacher that was only introduced this episode, and yet Velma acts like she has known him her entire life, gets murdered. And besides that, nothing else really happens, except for an incredibly boring side plot where Norval wants Fred to forgive him.
Who gives a shit?
And that was episode 1.
God, that was boring.
Episode 2 starts with everyone being told that Mr. S is missing. So Velma starts stalking Fred because she wants to see a picture of his dead mother to prove that she is really gone. Because apparently to Velma, seeing a person die right in front of you is not good enough evidence.
Right.
He keeps avoiding her, but luckily for Velma, there just so happens to be an event that forces students to pair up with each other.
Oh, how convenient.
She rigs the event to make them both partners, and even though she is blatantly caught cheating with a magnet, no one seems to question it, and that's because the writing is cat shit. Eventually, after a really boring amount of time, she finally gets Fred to show her the picture and it has a ghost on it.
What?
But it's not a ghost, it's a costume from a local costume store, and when she asks the manager to see the customer list, he of course says no because that's confidential information, before randomly deciding to chase after some kids because they are oiling his door, leaving his computer all alone for her to access, completely unguarded, not even by a password.
That's so fucking lazy.
And since people's privacy means absolutely nothing to Velma because she's an asshole, she finds out that it was Norval who bought the costume. Going off this really weak piece of evidence, Velma and Fred barge into his room and accuse him of being the murderer. Now you'd think that Velma would have some reservations about accusing Norval since they've been best friends for years, but I guess Velma's only friend is herself because she's a two-faced cunt. Norval says that he's not the killer, and just like with Daphne's mothers, that's apparently good enough evidence for Velma to believe him.
This is a waste of time.
So with no more leads, we cut to Daphne and Amber oiling hinges for the local festival, before Amber gets run over by a car, but somehow is perfectly fine afterwards.
Why?
In the hospital, they use bullshit witchcraft which gets them taken to the morgue by a random doctor where they just so happen to gain access to the two dead men, and it turns out that the killer is removing their dicks. I still can't believe that grown adults were actually paid to write this shit. Anyway, Velma and Fred confront Daphne's mothers as one of them is the person who hired Fred in the first place, and they did this because they wanted to cover up the fact that there is a serial killer on the loose, as this would ruin their chance to be elected as the new sheriff. Yes, Daphne's mothers are committing numerous crimes by doing this. Crimes such as accessory after the fact, obstruction of justice, tampering with evidence, basic corruption, and a bunch of others. But Velma seems perfectly fine with them doing this.
Why are you the way that you are?
Not just that, but they have admitted to all their crimes with the door behind Velma wide open, where we can see some guy listening in on the conversation, and this evidence of blatant corruption goes absolutely fucking nowhere. And we can see this when the dead cop's brother Merle tells everyone in the town about their corruption, and no one seems to care that the police force is breaking the law, all because they are lesbians. I mean, why the fuck else do they continue to get away with it? So because the police force are so obviously corrupt, Merle decides to run for sheriff, Fred's dad starts to pork Velma's mum, and the episode ends with the two morticians that helped out Daphne being murdered.
Oh my god, who the hell cares?
Now episode 2 has a lot of fuck Christianity moments in it, and that's because these people are cowards and pick the safest religion in the entire world for them to criticize.
And if the church has taught me anything, it's to question nothing.
Useless.
Look at the Catholics. We used to control the world. Now we only control Boston and the Supreme Court. But the church thinks it's a demon, which is why they sold me this relic for only $10,000. Real faith is knowing something's true even when it's verifiably false. And not much love to go round.
Fred, please do more research on the Catholic Church.
I hate so much about the things that you choose to be.
And what's most annoying about all of these people is that they actually think that they are being edgy when they say the most mainstream talking points possible, which won't get them into any trouble. It's what weak-ass pussies do, and that's what they are. The first 2 episodes of Velma are unwatchable, and after taking a quick look at the next episode...
You know I hate the rich. I'd be a communist if I didn't want to kill my lazy teammates on every group project.
You're a little cunt.
This season is absolute dog shit, just like the first one was. Fuck this show and everyone who is involved in writing this.
It's a piece of shit.